Hey guys, I'm gonna be doing some new videos about learning and how strategies on learning and strategies on observation and stuff like that. I'm one of those guys who's more concerned about the journey, the process, rather than the end goal or the destination. So recently, about maybe 2.5 months ago, I had to learn some new skills for a job that I wanted to get, and basically, this job involved dealing cards, playing cards, and so I never sat at a casino before. I never played any casino games, so it was just a foreign language to me. And the place where I learned it was part of my job. I didn't really like the way they taught it. A lot of them were inexperienced teachers. They actually were blackjack dealers and very great pit managers and stuff like that, but I don't think they had a lot of experience teaching. And so anyways, I observed a few things that could have been done better, and it came back to how I related to learning. And I always been a teacher the last 10, 12 years, and I would go to seminars and stuff and observe, and some instructors or coaches will teach it better than others, but in most cases, most people don't do a very good job of teaching. And I think partly because they're great at conveying the message, but they're not great at coaching or great at facilitating the skill or taking you down that path to acquire the skills. And what you need to do is you need to break down what you need to learn so that you can go on that journey to acquiring that skills. Anyways, I made some notes. I might refine these notes later, but I'll call this notes right now 1.0. Okay, so strategies to learning new skills quickly. Okay, 1.0. So I might refine these notes and add it later. But the first thing you need to do is establish the truth. So what you need to do is you need to, let's just say you want to acquire a skill set. You want to make sure that the skill set you want to acquire is the truth. In other words, does it perform what you want? Does it achieve your end goal? Okay, don't practice a skill set that takes you to the wrong truth. Okay, number two is find patterns of truth. You know, there's more than one way to get there. Find as many ways to get there as possible. Okay, number three, find overarching themes. So let's just say you're learning a new skill. That new skill, its combination, it belongs to a bigger skill set, or it belongs to a bigger body of knowledge, and you want to find an overarching theme so that you can see things from a macro and micro level. Okay. Number four, you want to break them down to little pieces, and that's something a lot of people don't do. And then a thing that I kind of coined, I don't know if someone else coined it or someone has a better word for it. I call it micronized learning, and that's something I'm going to talk about in my next video. Micronized learning is very important. It's a step that a lot of people neglect because they want to jump way ahead. Okay, and you need a really good coach, someone who has a lot of insight into that subject matter to create micronized learning. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. Number five, find connectors. Find things that are related to each other, and so that you can acquire your skills quickly. Okay, so that you can kind of scaffold it. I like to think of it as a snowball. You know, once you have a little snowball goes down the hill, your knowledge gets quicker and quicker. You know, it gets faster and faster. Okay, acquiring knowledge faster. Number six, you want to interject your learning with new and unusual variables. So a lot of times, once we figure out how to do something, we think we're expert at it, when in fact we're not. We just recognize patterns on how to do it. We are not expert at it because when something's out of the norm or whatever, it throws us off. Now, to someone who's been doing it for a long time, it doesn't throw them off because they have seen those norms before, unusual events before. But as a coach or as a trainer, you got to make sure you establish those things so that on the day of the fight or the day of the event, your team or your people you train do not falter. You know, so the less strangeness, the less things, the more variables they encounters on the day of the event or performance, the chance of failures is less, and the chance of success is much higher. So don't get overconfident thinking, oh, I know how to do this, when in fact you've been performing the same task over and over again, but not adding different variables. Okay. Number seven, interlace your learning. So in other words, you got to put it into something else. Okay, so think of leaves. You want to interlace them, and I'll break down interlace learning in my next video. but you can't always do the same thing over and over again. You got to interject, put it into something else. Okay, number 8. Let's just say you micronize your learning, or you learn one set of skill, but it's part of a bigger skill set. So you broke that down to a little part. You want to make sure that you establish 80% success rate. If it's not 80% success rate or better, and you move on to the next skill, your chance of failure is very high. All right, and you want 80% success rate. So maybe you perform that skill, you practice that skill set 100 times, and it's not 80% success rate. Don't move on. Okay. Number 9, stress test your learning. Okay, so you want to have a coach, or you want to stress test your learning. You use modern day technology, videotape yourself, and you want to stress test your learning by trying to create that environment as close to your after day performance. So let's just say you're a race car driver, you don't have access to the racetrack. You want to create that environment as close to it as possible. That way, on the day of the performance, your chance of success is much higher. And then you also want to do it in almost a detached mode, in the sense of like use that opportunity to observe of how you perform. And what you want to observe for are behavioral patterns, assumptions, and belief system. You know what I mean? Your coach needs to look at you, because sometimes your coach think they're passing on knowledge when in fact they weren't very successful in passing these knowledge on to you, and therefore they have a chance to see what you did wrong, and what the main concern is not what you did wrong, but how or why you did those things wrong. A lot of time is behavioral patterns or assumptions or misunderstanding of instructions that was passed on to you. All right. And then once you achieve all these things, you want to move on. And how you move on to your next connectors or to your next skill set is to add more target points. Okay, so you want to think of target points as little spider webs. So these little spider webs help you bring yourself or your vehicle to the next target point. Okay, so you create all these little target points, and you're shooting these spider webs out to them. And the more spider web you shoot to where you need to go, it's going to become a rope, and it's going to pull you to where you need to go. Okay, so there's several books that influence the way I teach. I'll just mention a couple of them. One of them is called Make It Stick. You can find it on YouTube. It's about a 9-hour lecture on how to learn. It's done by several neuroscience and psychologists and stuff. And basically the consensus was that almost every students are learning it incorrectly. Okay, they're not utilizing the learning patterns that our brain naturally wants to find. Another one is called The Art of Learning. I forget the guy's name, Wozniak, whatever his name is. And basically, there was a movie that based on this kid. He was the youngest grandmaster, chess champion. The book was called Fighting Bobby Fischer, the movie. And finally, excuse me. Finally, there's 2 books, ironically, by the same name. One's called Mastery by George Leonard. And that approach is more Zen-like. George Leonard's a Aikido, I think 5th-degree Aikido master. And he wrote the whole book about mastery in the sense of enjoying the process. Okay, and then another book written by Robert Greene, also called Mastery. And this one breaks down on how to master skills very quickly, about finding mentors and stuff like that. Super, super awesome book. I recommend that you all guys look for it. Anyways, this is part 1. I hope to shoot part 2 in the next couple of minutes.